I am Nicole Alvarez, sitting here with Bakar. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Nicole.
We're going to talk about you and get to know you, and we're going to talk about music.
Let's do it.
The first thing I want to say is one of the reasons I'm drawn to your music, and that I think it's so special, is you're very boundless. Like, I've heard you describe your music as schizophrenic, but it's a melting pot of all the like melodic energies that you've been exposed to in your life.
Yeah.
And that gives you so much free reign. And for a listener, it's so exciting because you don't know what adventure you're going to take us on. You could do pretty much anything. Does that go back to the way that you grew up?
For sure. Yeah, just because of, it does. And thank you for saying that. And it definitely does because of the different kind of just the genres that I was around and the music that my family played and just like I'm from a place called Camden in London. That's like very much an eclectic place and a melting pot for so many different cultures. So all of that just comes out in what I make, I think, yeah. And on top of that, just like there's a subconsciousness or a consciousness within me that just like wants to push things, you know?
Yeah.
And not be confined to like one certain thing.
That says a lot about you as a person, though. Like, your musical style just means you're like an endlessly curious person, open to all kinds of things. So you're like just you flow in that way, and that's a compliment to you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very much a natural thing. It is more natural than a thought process, but I do think about it sometimes too.
So when you were little, what was your first musical impact? And not like what got you on the path to be a musician, but the first time you remember being struck by music?
My earliest memories are really just like my mom driving me to school.
Those are the best memories.
Yeah, like my mom driving me to school and just playing like the music that she was into, which was like predominantly R&B, and like some rap and yeah. So those would be the first things like that I remember hearing, and also just like lots of Arabic stuff. You know, I would just hear it getting played around me. Some African music as well because I'm African, and that like those really like just formed me early on. But those are my earliest memories. Just like, you know, I remember like my first CD I bought was Craig David's album.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And like just like a lot of Aaliyah and stuff like that in my house, yeah.
What about rock music or alternative music? What was your first memory of any of those artists?
I think it was probably from playing like computer games.
Yeah.
So like Tony Hawk's, like playing Tony Hawk games or playing FIFA and stuff like that.
Those soundtracks are fire.
Those soundtracks like honestly were like the first thing that showed me like an alternative side or just like, you know, more that those weird things, stranger things that I was listening to, you know. I come from like a black community where like, you know, I come from like a hip hop place, you know, like a rap place, a grime place in the UK. We make grime music. So it was just mainly that in my life, which I was more than enough for me, you know, like I love that music. But then, yeah, like playing games, you know, there would always be those songs that we gravitated towards on those computer games. And then like later on, years later, you kind of double back and realize like, oh, okay, that was that and that was that and that was the Gorillaz and that was, you know, I don't know, like.
You ended up being featured on FIFA, right?
Yeah,
That's
a few
so
times.
Cool. What a full circle moment that
for
must
sure.
have been.
Because then like I know for a fact that like a lot of my songs that have been on those computer games have been like the alternative, you know, like and have been like the gateway drug in a sense for people to
in a good way.
In a good way, yeah. I mean that in the best way possible, to then go down a rabbit hole of, okay, I like this. Okay, yeah, I can get with this, and this makes sense to me. Because that's what happened to me. Like when I first heard like Chili Peppers or wherever I heard them.
Did it blow your mind?
It blew my mind, and also it blew my mind in the sense of just like, oh, I get this. Like, you know, I understand this. This feels like I can get with this, you know. And so it like opened the door for me for sure.
You have a mixtape, Bad Kid. Does that relate to your time in boarding school? Were you a bad kid when you were growing up, or slightly maybe rebellious, let's say?
I think Bad Kid, the title of that project was like very much like a triple, quadruple entendre because it was like, yes, you're right. But also like, it almost felt like that's what they labeled me, you know what I'm saying? Like at school, it was just like the easy thing to say, like, rather than they getting deeper and really trying to like understand me.
Same.
You know, it was just like, oh, he's a bad kid. And then you lean into it, you know, as a child, and then you just become that, you know? So it's like
give the people what they want then. Yes.
Yeah. And like, even just like, subconsciously, like you just become what you know? So it's just like, they labeled me that, I kind of embraced it, you know, and then there was like but then, you know, I'm also a big Madlib fan, you know, and like back when I used to listen to Madlib, and I still do, he would call himself Madlib the Bad Kid. And so like, that it came from that too. And so there was so many different things that were just pointing towards Bakar the bad kid. Yeah.
So in 2015 is when you started playing around with SoundCloud. So at what point were you in your life, or what led you to say, all right, I'm going to give this a go. I'm going to try this out?
I think I had the confidence because like I was always around a lot of musicians and before I made music. So, and some of them like were doing well, some of them like no one knew about, you know. It's just like I was just around different musicians and I would always be in studios giving opinions on stuff because I'm just an opinionated person. So like, and my taste and my opinion was always respected, and I always noticed that.
And that's where you built your confidence.
Yeah, exactly. And then so like that just gave me the confidence to like try it myself. And I was almost on some like, what's the worst that could happen? Even though like when I first was doing it on the SoundCloud, like it's been written about before, like I didn't put my name to it initially.
It was anonymous.
It was anonymous because I already had a bit of a following. Just in London, like, you know, like I had a bit of a following on social media, like just because of the musicians that I was around and stuff like that.
So why was it important to be anonymous? Is it because you truly wanted people to gravitate towards the music and not who they thought
both.
they already
like,
knew?
I would be like ingenuine to say like I wasn't like trying to like cover myself a little
Got
bit,
it.
as confident as I was, because I knew the music was good, like, or I liked it at least anyway. But like yeah, maybe I was a bit shy and like, you know, like I said, like people already knew me. I'd already like thrown like parties with Boiler Room and stuff, you know, and like it was almost like the role I'd taken for myself at that time was a bit more of like a curator of like music, you know. Okay. I had a blog and stuff like that at that time. So like, I think that it was to just like, yeah, and I knew that people, it was like a social experiment too. Like I remember the bio of that SoundCloud literally was, this is all an art project. So like, and I still kind of like have that mindset, to be fair. So
I can tell.
So yeah, it was like, yeah, I think they gave me the confidence to just play, and I was just playing around, and I just love sound, and I love just like playing with sound.
All of the things.
Yeah.
So 2017 was your official introduction into the world with Big Dreams. How did you know what you wanted to put out as your introduction? Because, you know, you only get to make a first impression once.
For sure.
So how did you decide this is it?
I think it decided itself for me. I made the song. Yeah, I wrote the song, and then I recorded the song. And it was just like a really like powerful message, that song. That I knew like people like me, and also like, you know, I think like being a black man, and like, you know, and making the music that I was deciding to make, it was important for me like to step out with that song being like something that was a big message, you know. And that's always been my goal: big song, big message. Like big message, but I make sure that message sounds good, like, do you know what I'm saying? So I just felt like it was a story. Like I really wrote that song about my little brother at the time who was trying to make it playing football, and I had that story, and there's thousands of kids in London that have that story, you know, thousands of like young inner city working class kids trying to make it through sport. I'm sure it's the same out here. And so like that's what that song was about. And I knew when I wrote it, it really wrote itself. It was so easy for me. I remember like it was so clearly. I remember it so clearly, and I just remember like really being tied to that story and knowing that like it was an important story and that other people would feel it and relate to it. And so, yeah, I felt that I was like, oh, this is how I wanna, is how I wanna read it, because everything I'd made up until that point, like all the SoundCloud stuff, was more like, it was like stuff that I return to still like after, and I still make music like that to this day. That's about relationships. That's like quirky love stories about, you know, youthful romance, you know. But like, I stepped out with that, and I think people knew I was gonna do that, you know, like the youthful romance stuff. I don't think people knew I was gonna like be really like conscious, you know, with my thought when I wrote songs. So it was important for me to start like that.
It's amazing. You shed a new layer for everybody.
Yeah.
You peeled back a new layer.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk about the performance part. I remember when you first dropped at Leeds, all of the musical outlets were already calling you electrifying. And that's probably one of the scarier things of what you do, is being out in front of thousands of people. An entirely different persona comes out. So did you, or do you walk on stage with that electrifying confidence, or do you have to turn or flip a switch? That's a whole different layer of this entire business.
Yeah,
it's one I like. Part?
Yeah, I'll enjoy it a lot. You know, I'll enjoy it a lot. Like I think were you at Reading and Leeds last year?
No. But I do my research.
Okay.
I was there last year. I don't remember much.
No, that's a good thing. Yeah. Sorry, the question was
when you performance, because being in the studio and recording is one thing, but then getting on stage and presenting yourself a completely different way for people to see you convey your message physically. Tell me about like what that is for you.
It's a really important part. It's probably it's like one of the most special parts about what we do, just to have that opportunity to connect with people, strangers, you know, that just through this, like through these songs. It's crazy, like, and we go all around the world doing it. It's amazing, man. And I love when people like write great things about the show, because I think it's a great show. and yeah, like I did before I go on stage. Honestly, it's just like me and my band. You know, we've been playing for a while now, and it's just like we almost try, but pre-stage, to ignore the audience. You know, because like we really just want to play a great show for ourselves first and foremost,
which is important.
Because like, and everything else is kind of is like a byproduct of that. You know, everything falls off the back of that. So we just want to, like, if we nail it just within ourselves as a group, and we want to be like as locked in and as synchronized as we possibly can, then everything comes off the back of that. And so we try to get that place first. And if I can lock in like that, then yeah, amazing.
My first Bakar was at Coachella this last summer.
That was magical.
Dude, that was magical because you're at that time slot that they put you. You are up against some of the heritage acts and some of like, you know, like the big dogs. And your tent was packed. It was overflowing. Yeah. It was such a vibe in there. Please tell me, because I think Coachella is such a special festival to play. And you looked like you were just alive. It was so fun to watch.
Thank you. Yeah, it was,
and the
honestly
crowd was going off.
One of the better shows this year, like, just because like it was a perfect moment of like so many things came together. And I think that like we really didn't expect that. Like we knew, you know, we have like a great following out here, and we knew that it was gonna be good. Like I knew it was gonna be good. And like shout out for Coachella for putting us on 9 p.m. on a Saturday. Like what a blessing. Spot. They knew, like, you know, and I appreciate them for that, you know, believing in me and giving me that slot. And I think we did it justice. Like it was just like a meeting of so many things that came together, because like I just think that like us not knowing what it was gonna be helped how it went. You know what I'm saying? Because it was like, you know, sometimes you can go in like a bit too comfortable because you know that the car's gonna be there.
You go in there a little cocky, and then that usually doesn't work out in your favor.
Yeah, exactly. Or it does. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it's like this was just like great because like we had those nerves. Like, you know, we really were nervous, and to be nervous is really what we want. You know, like
such as passion.
Exactly, and we want to care a lot, and so it really went amazing. And like especially that first weekend, like it was just.
I know.
It was amazing. And I think the energy in there was just like so good, man.
It was bananas. By that time, at that slot, like 9 o'clock, the people that are there need like their second or third wind. And going into your tent was like an injection of adrenaline where you left and you're like, I am ready for more.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Let's talk about Halo.
Halo.
Your new album. Tell me what you want about it. And then I want to talk about a couple of the songs. You and I were talking about one in particular off air. Yeah. To me, it's like just the lighthouse of the album. But I want you to tell me a little bit of a story about Halo.
Halo was a project that came off the back of us making our last record, Nobody's Home. And, you know, there was a lot of time between Bad Kid and Nobody's Home, like, you know, and we didn't want to do that again. We knew that, like, whilst we were making our last record, that we wanted to go straight into whatever was next, because I felt like I had more to say, because the last record was very specific about what I was talking about, and so I knew I wanted to go straight into something else, and Halo was that thing, and we were on the road because we were touring the last record, so. It has this like it was really like a moving house, you know, like
it feels like that.
It was a house on wheels that like was very mobile and was very open-minded. And
oh wow, you saying that, and me, the first time I listened to the album, I was in my car, and it moves like you're describing. It all makes sense. Oh.
And it has that feel to it, and there's a freedom to it, and there's like a boundlessness to it that I really love, and there's
an exhale to it too. Like I feel like it's easy on my soul.
Yeah, it is, and I wanted to do that. You know, I wanted to like be able to like still get to the topics I want to get to that are like a lot of the time quite like deep.
Yeah,
and I still wanted to get those topics, but I wanted to get to them in a way that was
not heavy. It doesn't have to feel heavy to get the point across.
Exactly, because I just feel
That's
like
what it is.
Exactly, and sorry to cut you off, but it's like I just feel like society, from my standpoint, from my perspective, was that a place where was that a place where we still need the content, we still need the heavy stuff, but we might need it packaged in a way that is I don't want to say palatable because like that's the wrong word, but just in a way that is, and I don't want to say digestible, I want to say like just a bit more light, and like that's what I've always strive to do, like that's what Big Dreams was at the start, it's this duality between like, if you want to listen to Big Dreams and hear a real story about some real shit, you can, but if you want to just listen to it on some happy-go-lucky vibes, you can too, and just listen to it for that, and I've always strived to do that with Hell and Back was that, at its finest, this really dark song that I wrote that I masked with happiness, and so you have the choice to take it how you want to, and I'm still trying to do that now. So this was like me trying to tap back, like trying to do that even better and even bigger, and just trying to like give messaging but have it still feel fun.
I like what you were saying about, because we have to talk about the heavy stuff, but it doesn't always have to feel heavy. Like with the music on this record, there's like a capacity to navigate through that stuff in an easier, lighter way.
Yeah.
And if we can all just like move around like that, wouldn't the world be great?
Exactly. Honestly, I'm so glad you said that.
I love it. The spotlight now is on All Night. Tell me one thing about that song, and then I want to get to the song that you and I were talking about.
All Night is like one of the songs on the record that like really grew with time. It was like touch and go whether it was gonna make it, because like it was one of the songs. I typically don't sit on songs like the version I make when I make it is very often like more often than not the version that you hear. There'll be some little changes and that, but more often than not the bulk of it is done on that version one. Whereas like All Night was different from that and taught me patience and time, and like really like gave me a perspective that I didn't have, which was just like you can really knead a song and just like treat it like it's dough, you like bread, and just like really work it, and sometimes it's not instant, and sometimes you have to be patient and go back to it, and I'm so proud of me and my friends that made it, because it was like we didn't give up on it, and so often I do that and people do that, you make a song, it's cool, but then like it doesn't fit a certain mold. Whereas like we love that song so much, we were like, we're gonna make it work, and like we made it work and it became better. It wasn't just about making it work, it became even better and larger than life. And so I'm really proud of it.
I love this. Before we wrap this up, and I don't want to say too much about Alive because I want people to experience it the way that I did. But to me, that's the lighthouse of the record, because I think it's the most important message. You and I were talking about how we forget to be grateful sometimes, of like the easiest thing on earth is waking up and going outside, and by the time we wake up we're already like complaining or bitching about our day or whatever it is. But what about just like you wake up and there's air in your lungs and you get to go outside? That's fucking cool. Yeah,
exactly. And I think that song was probably born out of that, spawned out of that, of just like like worrying about these things that ultimately when you shed them all off like aren't that important, and when you get to the meat and potatoes of the situation, that's like, as we say back home, it's just like it's really just about being grateful for the ability to walk, the ability to move, the ability to talk, the ability to breathe, like whatever, like we're blessed so many in different ways, and that goes for people that aren't able to walk, I say that to say like, whatever's your scenario, whatever troubles you have in this life, like, we're here and there's so much good we can do whilst being here. That's the message. So yeah, just want to be alive, man, and wanting to feel, like really wanting to feel, like whether that feeling is good, whether that feeling is bad, just wanting to feel. You nailed
it with that song. You absolutely
nailed it. I love
that
you saying it's the lighthouse. That's a cool way to describe it.
And I'm going to carry it around like sunshine in my pocket. I'm going to carry that song around.
Exactly.
Thank you for coming here. I read that you said that you just want to be great. You want to be part of that story. And I believe that you are well on your way.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're very welcome, Bakar. Thank you so much. And you just be you. You are sunshine.
My love. Thank you for being sincere, and thank you for supporting what I do.
You're very welcome.